All right, good morning. Waiting for others to join, but just to kind of set the agenda, set the tone for what we have in store. We're going to be having a discussion, I would say, for the next 1 hour on how do I score high on GMAT, right? And I know that it's a kind of a broad topic, and Tung, so nice to hear that you're back again. Great. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of go ahead and start off with what we have in schedule for today. So a couple of things. First is you have the Q&A window, right? So in case you have any questions that you want to ask, you can use the Q&A window that you see on the top. But here is a request that please don't use the Q&A window to chat. What happens is a lot of people, they type, can you answer my question, or okay, or what happens is in my view, when I'm as a presenter, I suddenly see 200 questions, correct? And it becomes virtually impossible for me to do justice to all of them. So I would just request you to use the Q&A window sparingly. Use the chat window for any kind of discussion. Feel free. You have already put in your name and your city, so you can go and chat whatever you want. In case someone is not able to hear me, I would request for you to help me out over here and just make sure that you are kind of letting the other people know whether you are able to hear me. Because the way I look at it is, even if one person is able to hear me, all of you should be able to hear me, correct? So that's the logic that I'm using over here. And what we're going to do today is, just have a chat, just a quick intro. Many of you already know me. You might have seen my YouTube videos. If you're not already a Crackable student, if you're a Crackable student, obviously, you get to um, this. I'm just trying out something now. I'm just trying to see if I can join in with whether I can join in. All right. So while we are that, just a quick background. I've been teaching GMAT for many years. The reason I'm telling you whatever I'm telling you is not because I'm smarter than any of you, right? That's what I like to believe. I like to believe that I think of the GMAT as an average test taker. The mistake that I see a lot of GMAT test prep instructors do is they assume that the average test taker is really doing it as a career, correct? I understand you are not doing it as a career. The chances are you want to get done with GMAT in the next few months and never ever ever have to go back to OG, correct? I'm pretty sure a lot of you, and if you agree with me, you can just go ahead and mention it on the chat. Not that you hate the GMAT, and something I've said, don't hate the GMAT, right? I mean, love the GMAT, right? It's a nice test. It's very interesting if you try to understand what it's really trying to test you on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw upon my years of experience, and I'm going to answer this very simple question, which is usually what are the top things that people who take the GMAT and do well, and people who take the GMAT and don't do so well, what is it that differentiates them, correct? So that's what I'm going to do. I have a few questions that I'm going to be also using, and for those questions, I will be giving you time to kind of solve these questions. And the idea is that, just one second. So just make sure that one second. All right. So what we will make sure is we'll make sure that we kind of utilize the next 1 hour to actually answer that question. That's really my intent over here. I don't need to go through this, but just to let you know that this is a technique that has worked for a lot of students, correct? See, I think, one of the things that I see is people go with all this mystery sauce, which says, how to go from verbal 20 to verbal 40 in 2 weeks, how to get to 760 in 1 month. All of these, it's not going to work, right? See, these are all like these quick fix diets, correct? These quick fix diets which tell you that, hey, you have to have like, apple vinegar, before you eat food, do this. All of this is mumbo jumbo, correct? Really, the people who did well, they did well because they had two things, and that's it. Two things, right? What are the two things? A, you need to be smart, okay? I mean, I can't tell you how smart someone like Neeraj was. Neeraj, by the way, is the founder of Paperboat, right? So if you've heard of Paperboat, you've had the juices. He's the founder of that company. Super smart guy. Raviraj Jain, super smart guy. Gurupreet. So you have to be smart, but then you know what you also need to do? You also need to have the techniques to score high, correct? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how super smart people who do well on the GMAT, how do they really look at it? Just a bunch of our mentors. So these are people. So the way Crack Verbal acts is it acts as a bridge between people who have been there, done there. So a lot of our mentors do this willingly. Trust me, for them, it's more about the passion of giving back. So be it as teachers, be it as application mentors, we have people from almost all the top schools in the world on our panel, right? A couple of free resources to get you started so that you kind of have stuff. So the first thing is, people who are part of the Crack Verbal course, they already have this, but those who don't have it, there is a free course that we have, and this course is essentially going to talk about something that no test prep company really talks about. So I think it's very important that we actually talk about it, which is how to study for the GMAT. Okay. So those who have, taken the course, maybe you can put on the chat video with a chat window whether you have actually seen it. But I actually offer a ton of advice on how to study, because I think that's another thing that people usually don't talk about, right? They usually talk about this one thing, which is, the what of the GMAT, correct? The what of the GMAT is the parallelisms and sentence correction and, strength and weakening questions and CR and, inference and big picture questions in RC and all of this. Sometimes what happens is, it's easy to get lost, but the real problem that I've seen a lot of times that stops students from really getting to the GMAT score they want is the ability to sit for 3 months and study. All the smart people that you saw Neeraj Kakkar. Neeraj Kakkar studied for 4 months. Let me tell you that, right? He put in the long hours. So anyone who thinks, see, if you are a genius that you can go ahead and score 800 on the GMAT with no prep, great, right? I mean, then a test prep course is not for you. But if you're a mere mortal, like most other people, correct, you'll realize that, studying for the GMAT can actually be tough. So I've just given the link in the chat window. So just go ahead and, use that. So yeah, thanks, Nilesh. Great to know that you're using the Kanban board. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you watch the videos. We put up a lot of interesting content. In fact, the next quarter, we have a plan to release almost 100 different videos. I want to give everything out. So make sure that you subscribe and like the channel. Always on our website, we plan to have a lot more blogs. I came up with a very, very authoritative blog. It's a 6,000 word blog, how to study for the GMAT with a full-time job, right? That is the last blog that you would see. Make sure that you read that blog and also share it with friends who are also studying for the GMAT, right? All right, so now I'm going to get started with the actual part of studying for the GMAT, right? So this is the bit where I want to kind of focus on the three parts. So this is a fairly large problem, right? So I've made a bold promise to you, and I've said, well, I'm going to get you to a higher score on verbal in 1 hour, correct? It's a webinar, right? What is it that I can do? So what I've done is I've kind of boiled it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the three topics. We are going to go through sentence correction, critical reasoning, and reading comprehension. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some sample questions and I'm going to show to you how on the GMAT, someone who's going to score a 760 is going to look at it differently. And I'm going to leave you with some tips. So my suggestion, if you have any other tabs open, please close the tabs. Maybe you want to take out a paper and a pen and maybe make notes, because what I'm going to say is fairly valuable, right? Let's start with sentence correction, right? So one thing that I've realized about people studying for the sentence correction portion on the GMAT is they just end up studying the theory, correct? So for them, sentence correction is nothing but remembering all the rules, right? In fact, I just had a chat with someone a few days ago, and I told him that, look, solving questions on the OG is like running on a treadmill, okay? But taking the GMAT is like running a race, correct? So what happens is when you are, preparing for the GMAT, the idea is not to, just, try to be as fast as possible. The idea is to go faster than the guy who's running next to you, right? That's pretty much how it works. So what you're really doing is don't get fixated on theory, right? In fact, I will tell you, most people end up knowing all the theory that they need to know, right, in the first maybe 15, 20 days of the prep. In fact, those of you who are crackable students, I can tell you what we do in the classroom, what we teach online is pretty much what you need to know everything on the GMAT. I mean, don't worry about the minutiae, right? Don't worry about the small exceptions to the rule. That is not your problem. Your problem is, can I get the big ones out? So this is what I call as the first level of elimination on the GMAT. Okay, this is a process. I'm going to call it level 1, level 2, and level 3. I will tell you what to look at in level 1. I will tell you what to look at in level 2. I'll tell you what to look at in level 3. Let's start off with level 1. Right now, one key thing about level 1 is, remember, these are the big reasons, correct? So if I were to give you an analogy, if you got the best batsman, you want to promote the batsman up in the order, because you want to give him more balls to play, right? In cricket, if you know what I'm saying. Similarly, I would pick the big ones, right? So the first one is I would pick the meaning of the sentence. A lot of times when you start off, it's very important for you to understand the intent of the sentence. And what we see on the GMAT is, time and again, if you do not understand the intent, it's going to be very tough for you to apply the rules of grammar, correct? And I'm going to be showing that, in a bit, but always take a step back. Don't get caught up in the rules. Even before you get caught up in the rules, stop, ask yourself, what is this question asking me? The second thing is, you need to understand how sentences are constructed, right? So again, in the course, we talk about compound sentences, we talk about complex sentences, the two usual type of sentence. You're not going to get a simple sentence, right? So how a sentence is structured, correct? How you have an independent clause, conjunction, another independent clause, or independent clause along with one dependent clause, correct? Or you have a main subject followed by a list of predicates. Understand there are only 3 or 4 sentence structures that are valid on the GMAT, correct? You are not going to get more than one sentence. You just need to get an understanding of what is the meaning of the word sentence, correct? If you're not able to fine tune that, you're going to find, in fact, I'll tell you, about 20 to 30% of questions on the GMAT, you can eliminate at least one answer option using sentence correction construction, right? So it's actually sentence construction. It should not be sentence correction. So that's the small thing. It's called sentence construction. Third, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the sentence and I'm going to look at all the modifiers. correct? Modifiers, again, heavily tested on the GMAT. All that you need to do is ask yourself 3 questions, right? The first question to ask, A, what is the modifier? Second question to ask, what does it modify? And third question to ask, whether it should modify that or not. Simple as that, right? So what you need to do is you'll realize that if you are at a 400 level on the GMAT, you probably struggle to understand what is the modifier. You may be not being able, you perhaps don't even understand, that there are some forms of modifiers. In fact, one of the usual confusion that I've seen students make is they don't understand the difference between present continuous tense and a present participle modifier. For example, if I were to say, I am running fast, then running fast is a present continuous tense. But if I were to say running fast, comma, I went to the bakery, it actually means it's an adjective. It is describing I, which is the subject of the clause, correct? So these are the kind of things that you need to know at a 400, 500 level, correct? If you're not able to get these, don't expect your scores to improve beyond that. But here is what is going to happen at a 600 level. If you are at a 600 level, you probably understand what a modifier is, correct? You're probably gone past that first, chasm. Then what happens? You are expected to know what does it modify. Many a times on the GMAT, it can be very confusing to understand what is it really modifying, right? It may look like it's modifying an adjective, but you realize that it's modifying the entire clause. Or is it modifying the entity on the left? Is it modifying entity on the right? Okay. As a thumb rule, always remember, whenever you have modifiers, it should modify something as close as possible, right? That's the key. As close as possible. I'm not saying it has to be bang next to it, but it has to be as close as possible, right? So that's about modifiers. Subject verb. So now that you have identified the modifiers, what will happen is subject verb agreement will actually be a lot easier to spot, because one of the things that GMAT would do is between the subject and the verb, it would place this huge modifier, correct? Now that you have already seen that, okay, the modifier, what is it modifying? It is a lot easier for you to use subject verb. Again, very heavily tested and one of the easiest rules. Correct? That's the beauty of subject verb. It's one of the easiest rules. Singular subject, singular verb, plural subject, plural verb. Correct? And then there is parallelism. Heavily tested on the GMAT. If you look at OG and look at the number of questions that you have on parallelism, that gives you a sense that it's something that is getting tested on the GMAT. Here is a quick tip for all of you. You can make a note of it. If you find that a complete sentence is fully underlined, right, chances are you're going to get tested on modifiers and parallelism, right? So that's one of the things that you can, kind of remember, right? So in terms of, by the way, I just realized that the link that I had used earlier, I had actually not sent it out. So here is the link. All of you able to get the link, right? So for people attending this webinar, we are giving just that module for free. If you're a Crack Verbal student, don't worry, it's already part of the course. And finally, we have comparisons, both logical as well as grammatically, the comparable elements, or the elements should be comparable, correct? Use this in level 1. Trust me, 80% of your questions or 80% of, the things would actually get, solved because of that, right? And that's the deal with, sentence correction. People tend to worry too much, but I'll tell you 80% with these rules, you should be fine. Now let's get to level 2. Now, if you notice, I have put pronouns and tenses in level 2. I'm not trying to say don't use pronouns or don't use tenses. I'm not saying that. In fact, today I will show you how to effectively use pronouns in a sentence, right? So absolutely no problem. But having said that, one thing that I've noticed, with all the sentence correction questions that, we have had is pronouns can be a little tricky. So here is the thumb rule. Remember, pronoun ambiguity should actually lead to confusion, right? So try to look at it from a meaning confusion perspective. For example, if I were to say Ram played with the cat and they went to the market, or something of that sort. Technically speaking, on the GMAT, they cannot refer to Ram or the cat, correct? So GMAT would say it's a problem, correct? So if you had to use, you could have said both of them or something, but GMAT will kind of test you on some very clear cut rules, right? Same thing for tenses. I wish I could tell you that tenses are easy. The thing with tenses is, always, here is a tip for tenses. Again, you can make a note of it. Always look at the non-underlined part. Look at the part that is not underlined. In tenses, usually the clue is hidden somewhere over there. It will say since 1985, or it will say before so and so. All these words, before, after, since, they all tell you, they all give you a clue of when something would have happened, correct? So it's important for you to make sure that you kind of understand that thing, correct? Now, coming specifically to level 3, this is the level where people love being. I've had so many students. The problem is they start with level 3. Level 3 is, this bunch of things that can be very dangerous. See, if you don't know the rules, if you don't know level 1, level 2, getting to level 3 is, the part where it's going to be very hard. So level 3 is where, you have idioms, correct? So using idioms, in fact, we have a new module that is going to be uploaded next week. So all online students, watch out for it. Even for people who are in the classroom, we are going to be incorporating it in the classroom. So what we realized is that idioms, the way it is tested on the GMAT, tested in a very specific way, correct? And we will tell you exactly what you need to do. However, if you don't have an ear for idioms, it can be very risky, right? So if I were you, I would not use idioms, unless and until I'm absolutely sure that, what the idiom is. Then I would get into concision. See, concision is like, absolutely in the last, correct? You see that? Because the difference between one structure being active and the other structure being passive, right? Not a lot of GMAT questions, are going to really bother about it. And that should not be a reason for your rejecting that answer choice, correct? So my suggestion, hold on to that answer choice. Don't reject it. If that is the only difference between the last two answer options, that one is an active construction, one is passive construction, please use concision. But use it in the end. Use the big juicy rules, correct? Finally, or rather penultimate is clarity. If you feel that one sentence, is more clear than the other sentence, for some good reason, you can use clarity. However, here is a problem. Most times when you say clarity, you may end up using this sounds right and sounds wrong. And for sentence correction, it's very important for you to develop that discipline, correct? Very important that you develop that discipline of shutting your brain down, okay? The part of your brain, not your brain, okay? Not your entire brain, but shutting that part of your brain down, which is actually telling you that, hey, you know what? Why are you worrying? There is almost a devil sitting on, one of your shoulder and saying, hey, why bother, yaar? Why look at all of this? I clearly see D is wrong. See, just read D in your mind, and you'll read D in your mind. And then this devil says, it's very clearly it's wrong. Why are you worrying? Why are you wasting time? Look, we have reading comprehension to do. Chalo, fatafat, let's mark it and move on. And the moment that voice in your brain is going to tell you that, you're done. Because the GMAT test setter knows that devil. GMAT test setter knows how your brain thinks, correct? So the last thing that you do is do that. But should you do that? Yes. At some point, you need to understand, let's say you spent 2 minutes solving the question and you have gotten down to the last two answer options. And hey, guess what? You have exhausted all the ammo that you had, right? You threw everything at that question. You threw sentence construction, you threw, parallelism, you threw modifiers, you did everything, and still you're not able to get down to the last answer choice. What do? In India, there is this word, right? Like you say, Jai Mata Di. Okay. That's what I call the JMD rule. Say Jai Mata Di, JMD, move on. Okay. For those of you who did not understand this joke, please ignore, okay? But whatever mantra you have, just cross your fingers, say, let me just mark and move on, because it's very important that you commit to an answer, right? But that cannot be a reasoning, right? That cannot be a reasoning. I'm just saying that's a process. It's not a reason, right? So make sure that you do these three things. And I want you to focus on this. I'm going to come back to this point again, which is focus on the meaning, okay? Because GMAT sentence correction, your high school grammar teacher is not the ideal candidate for Harvard Business School, correct? So you need to understand that this whole thing, that we have, which is, with regards to, studying for the GMAT, is look at it as, what is it that Harvard would want me to know? Think of it that way, correct? And Harvard would not want you to know some bizarre rule. Harvard is saying, can this guy think? Can he work, with what he has? And in order to prove this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a simple question. I'm going to give you a poll at the end. Please don't use the chat window. Use the poll to answer, okay? Very quick question. Let's see if you are able to get it. The question is here. As the former is the part that should be underlined. So the part that would be underlined would be this one, right? As the former. Just one second, guys. I'm going to be switching the screen. Just give me a second. All right, sorry. I will share it again. I was just trying to see if I could do something, but I was not able to switch my screen. All right, so let's see how this one works, correct? Let's see what is the, way in which we are going to be doing this one. So now, when you see this question, what happens is a lot of people, they tend to directly jump and they try to solve it from the perspective of grammar. But my advice over here would be, don't try to worry about grammar, correct? That's not what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we are looking at it from a lens of logic. Now, see what it is saying. It is saying that this person, Joan Filkil, correct, is someone who is able to, just one second, I'm just, so by the way, can you just put it on the chat window if everything is fine? You're able to hear me? I just did a switch. If you can just put on the chat window. Okay, all of you, good, great. Now what happens over here is, if you look at it, you see that there is something about Johan Filkil, and it says that Johan Filkil attended more than 400 meetings and reviewed more than 700 rezoning applications. First thing that you need to know is this becomes my main clause. What I told you earlier, correct? Which is you have a main clause, understand sentence construction. Understanding sentence construction, according to me, is a key for you to doing well on the GMAT, because you can't apply logic. So Johan Filkil attended so-and-so and reviewed more than 700. Now, look at the first part. As the former chair of the planning board for 18 consecutive years and a board member for 28 years. So let me give you a sentence and let me see if we are able to get an analogy over here. As the main faculty or as the verbal faculty at Crack Verbal, Arun teaches sentence correction. Or let me just make it, in the past, Arun taught sentence correction. Okay, as the verbal faculty at CV for 10 years, as the verbal faculty at Crack Verbal for 10 years, Arun taught sentence correction. Now think about it. What is this whole thing? As the verbal faculty at CV for 10 years, this becomes a modifier. It is telling me in what position why would I teach sentence correction? I would teach sentence correction in what capacity, in what position. As the verbal faculty, I taught sentence correction. Let me give you another example, right? I love giving examples because the moment you give examples, it makes it a lot more easier. As the opening batsman of India, as the opening batsman of India for over 20 years. I'm just making it up. Probably it's over for over 20 years. Sachin scored more than 100 centuries, correct? Now, what happens over here is as the opening batsman for India, okay, for over 20 years, Sachin scored over 200 runs, now over 100 centuries. Now the question is, again, look at it. This is the main clause. What capacity did that person teach or that person do it? In that capacity as the opening batsman for India, in that capacity. Now, if I were to tell as the former opening batsman, see, if you are a former opening batsman, you can't be scoring 100 century in that capacity, correct? So I could say, let me give you another example. Again, as I said, examples are the best way to learn on the GMAT. So when you look at sentences like this, always try to draw some kind of an analogy so that it becomes easier. So now let me give you one more example, correct? As the former, captain of the Indian cricket team, Tendulkar was invited to give a pep talk to the team. Is this fine? Now let's look at what is the main clause. Tendulkar was invited to give a pep talk to the team. This becomes my main clause. In what capacity? As the former captain. He's not the captain anymore. But in the capacity of him being the former captain, he was invited. You and I would not be invited. But he is invited. Why? Is he the captain? No. He is the former captain. Do you understand how beautifully logic plays here? So if you look at it, the word former over here
let's try to understand this sentence. In this sentence, the word former, Joan Filkil attended these meetings. When do you attend a meeting or review and rezoning application? In what capacity do you do that? You do that as the chair of the planning board. You do that in this capacity. And as a board member, think about it. Here is the clue. If this had been former chair, if that were to be the case, shouldn't this be like ex-board member? No, you don't need to say that. Correct? It is in her capacity as the chair. Correct? So all the answer options that contain the word former basically go off. A goes off, B goes off, C goes off. Right? What are you left with? You're left with D and D. D says she was. E says as was. Correct? So the thing is, when you look at such questions, it's very important for us to understand, the whole thing that, look, when it comes to something like the GMAT, right, it's very important for you to focus on the meaning. Now you're left with two answer options, D and D. Look at D. D says she was. So now instead of this, it says, if I were to say, he was the former captain of the Indian cricket team, comma, Tendulkar was invited to give a pep talk to the team. Wait a second. He was the former captain of the Indian cricket team. This is actually nothing but a independent clause itself. You have two independent clauses connected by a comma. And we know that when two independent clauses are connected, independent clause 1, independent clause 2, when you have two independent clauses and you have just a comma connecting them, the problem is it's called a run-on sentence. Those who have taken the course, please go to the video where I explain about sentence construction. For that reason, D for Delta goes off. Leaves you with the right answer choice, E for Echo, which correctly says, as the chair of the planning board, in that capacity. Correct? So, did all of you understand this point? Any questions? You can post it on the chat window. So Gaurav, I just explained the whole thing. So you need to be very specific with your question. Former is rejected because Joan Filkil did not attend the meetings and review the applications as the former chair. She attended it as the chair. As the captain of India, Virat Kohli has won a lot of matches. As the captain of India, Azharuddin also won a lot of matches. In what capacity? As the captain, not as the former captain. So when someone is asked, correct, we need, here is the thing, Pratik, gender is not tested on the GMAT. Okay? We cannot eliminate she because we don't know the gender of Joan. You know, Joan is a US name, okay? And even in another case, you're not going to have another answer option which says she was and another answer option he was, correct? So don't worry, GMAT will not, kind of trick you on that. Okay? All of you clear? So now I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you the second thing that you need to know when it comes to correct, Akra. That's exactly the point. This question requires you act. In fact, I would say this, if you are gunning for a 40 plus verbal score, chances are GMAT is not testing you on grammar alone. There is a logic part that you need to pay attention to, correct? So here is the other thing. GMAT sentence correction is about knowing what to eliminate, not knowing what to select. Give me the 5 answer choices. I have no idea how the right answer choice looks like. Okay. And many times what happens is people are, when they come to me and they see me solve a question, they are very surprised. And I tell this, in fact, in the course also I mentioned that what we are really doing is like training our brain to understand how to eliminate. That's what we are doing. We are trying to score high on the GMAT. We are not here to learn English. We are not here to learn grammar. Please remember that. That's my only objective in the course and in this webinar. That's what I'm trying to do. It's your ability to score high, not your ability to know the syntax and semantics, right? Now, what I mean by this, I'm going to give you a question now, right? And this time what I'll do is I'll give you a poll, right? So here comes the question. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to answer the question, right? So your 2 minutes starts now. And please, when you have the answer, go ahead and mark it in this question over here. All right, so all of you got some answer. Great. So I see. So let me just end the poll now. It's about 3 minutes, so I guess you should have done by the this. So just to give you a sense, this is what most of you have chosen, right? So most of you have chosen a variety of different answer choices. As you see, this is what a tough question does to you. Now, what I want you to do is, I want you to take a step back and I want you to ask yourself, what was the process that you were following? Were you trying to find the right answer? Or were you just trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with the particular answer? Correct? What was your approach? Let's see. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this poll results on, right? But I'm also going to be seeing, okay, how you would have, looked at this question. So let's see this. Now, first, for the farmer who takes care to keep them cool, providing them with high energy feed and milking them regularly, Holstein cows are producing an average of 2,275 gallons of milk each per year. First thing, did all of you take that pause to understand the meaning? Remember, it's a tough question. There has to be something to do with meaning. So if I were to say, for a student, okay, who takes care to study regularly, okay, I want you to, it's kind of long for me to write, but let me just try doing this. For a student who takes care to study regularly and practice diligently, okay, the GMAT. Now you need to complete the sentence, okay? So on the chart window, okay, I want you to tell me the GMAT is very easy or the GMAT will be very easy. I'm giving you two options. If you do this, see, it's like a conditional statement, right? So for someone who does this, what will happen now? When will it be? It will be in the future, correct? Now, the point is, you know that over here, it will be very easy, correct? Now, think about it. Apply the same logic for a farmer who does these three things, correct? So first of all, what are the three things? Takes care to keep them cool, providing them with high feed and milking them. Once again, a farmer who, the moment you say who, it is now describing the farmer. So what are the things that the farmer does? Farmer who takes care to, now remember, where is the list starting from? The list is starting from after the word keep them. Okay, so keep them. What is the first attribute? Cool. What is the second attribute? Providing them. And third attribute, milking them. See, identifying the parallel structure over here, correct, would have been the key, because many people would have confused providing either with the present continuous tense, or they could have confused this with structure where you have it as a present participle, correct? It's neither a present participle because there is no tense before that. Who makes the earlier structure not a clause, right? So all of this again will come when you understand the sentence construction. That's also a very key thing, correct? So anyways, let's look at it. Let's assume that you did not get this. Could you have at least seen providing and milking, right? So you know providing and milking, and let's say that you were to assume that they are parallel. But look at answer option B. Providing them and milked regularly. Providing and milked. Shouldn't it be providing and milking? If at all you want to look at parallelism, right? This has to be the parallel structure, correct? So now this is where meaning comes into place. If you ask me, Arun, how do I know the structure? Well, he's describing the cow, right? Or rather, how the farmer is taking care of the cow. So how is he taking care of them? He's doing these three things. So providing and milk cannot be parallel. For that reason, answer option B goes off. Let's look at C. Now C has the opposite. It says provided and milking. I get rid of C, correct? But hey, you know what? You remember the verb will be. Okay, let's look at that verb will be. Let's assume that I use that approach. Then what you see over here is are producing, correct? Are producing. They are not producing right now, correct? They will produce. So let's assume that you are left with answer option B, D, E, correct? Now let us look at answer option D and D. Let's just look at the difference. Provided and milked. Both of them are there, which means, by the way, I rejected answer option A. So it says provided and milked. Okay, so let's hold on. Do you see anything else? Do you see this Holstein cows singular, whereas it's a Holstein cows plural, right? And that is your clue. Remember, you notice this them. And this is what practice will give you, correct? So what happens is practice will tell you that, okay, when to use pronouns. I didn't use pronouns in my first level, correct? I'm using it in my second level. Then look at the number of answer options that I would have been able to eliminate. Because it's a them, I need only cows, right? For that reason, answer option B, answer option D would go off, right? What does that leave you with? The right answer option E. You know, and the point is, it's grammatically perfect. It says, for the farmer who does three things: keep them cool, keep them provided with high energy feed, and keep them milked regularly. If he does these three things, then what will happen? Then the Holstein cows will produce in the future, right? For a student who takes CAT to study regularly, the GMAT will prove to be easy, correct? So that's why we get down to E, okay? So I'm just going to hold on for like a quick 15 seconds. Any specific doubts you have for this question? No doubts? Clear? Excellent. So I hope you are able to get my sense of what I'm trying to tell you in sentence correction, correct? So my ability, so the total number of rules available on the GMAT are not too many, correct? It's our ability to apply it in the correct context. Yeah, Nilesh, go ahead. Okay. So Anand, here is one more way in which you can do this, correct? The other way to do this is, if you look at it, you see these tenses over here. Okay, so let's look at the word produces. Look at B and look at D. It also uses the word produces. When are the word produces used? Produces are used when you are talking about something as a simple present tense, which means it's something that is a habitual thing. It always happens, correct? No, it doesn't always happen. It happens only under a particular condition. So my suggestion is, if you are not able to, for example, so by the way, that was an extra point on why producers was wrong. But between will and are, here's my suggestion. You did not know it earlier. Now you know it. This question has taught you that, correct? So you have learned something, correct? That's pretty much what you need to know, correct? So the next time you see such a condition, which will be repeated on the GMAT at some point, you know how to apply it, correct? That's another reason why you should be focusing on official questions, okay? One of the reasons why I keep saying focus on official questions is because I know for a fact that GMAT has a limited bag of tricks, okay? And, once you start solving questions, official questions, what happens? Your brain starts building a particular pattern, correct? Around what should be a right or a wrong answer, right? And that's what we really need to fine tune, correct? And why I'm telling that point is, as we segue into critical reasoning now, okay, it becomes all the more important for us to kind of understand this concept, okay? I'm just going to get a bottle of water. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you the next question in CR. Before that, I want you to think about something. In critical reasoning, I want you to ensure you have a good reason to eliminate. See, what happens a lot of times is GMAT creates these answer choices that look wrong. They just look wrong. So what happens in that case is people invariably end up eliminating the answer choice because, it just looked wrong, right? If you don't have a good reason, please do not eliminate. Keep it, okay? That's very, very important. Now, let's get on to the question. I want you to take this question. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. So, yeah, so your time starts now. So go ahead and hit the poll button, please. So go ahead. I think at some point you need to be able to make a decision. Okay. So I'm going to end the poll now. Go ahead and mark. So here is another thing you do. Let's try your luck. Okay. Let us see if how much luck you have. So go ahead and pick one answer option and see whether, how your luck plays out. Okay. Whatever you think is the right answer choice, just go ahead. I'm going to end it. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Poll end. All right. So just to give you a sense, this is the answer. I've got all over the place, correct? But most of you seem to be choosing C or D, with few of you going with E, and a couple of you with answer option A and answer option B. Okay. Now, the thing is, you need to understand when GMAT gives you such questions, the answer choices are also thought of in such a way that you could probably fall into the trap. So let's look at it. It says that there is this thing called heavy rainfall, which is more than 2 inches, and then there is moderate rainfall, which is more than 1 inch, but no more than 2 inches. When it says no more than 2 inches, I'll put it as greater than less than 2. Okay? Then I will say light. So it says light means some trace, which means greater than 0, and it says but no more than 1 inch, which means it is either equal to or less than 1 inch. Then it says no rainfall. Okay, no rainfall, I think is simple. It means 0. Okay. In 1990, there were fewer days of light rainfall, so fewer days of this, okay, in 1910, and fewer with moderate rainfall. Oh, so both light and moderate rainfall, both of them were less in 1990 than in 1910. Okay. But it says, yet, you see this word yet? Total rainfall for the year was 20% higher in 1990. So he's saying that this day was also low. Okay, this day was also low. This day was also low. Correct. There were fewer. When I say low, fewer days. In spite of this, he is saying that 1990 had 20% higher rainfall than 1910. I'm just trying to think, how is it possible? Let's look at it. Now I look at answer option A. The number of days with heavy rainfall, okay, was lower in 1990 than in 1910. So now what happens is we basically, start thinking from a perspective of, logic and say, hey, I am trying to figure out how the opposite is possible, correct? Like you would imagine that the number of days with heavy rainfall should have been more, right? That is what is logical. But remember, what is the question asking? It is also, what is this word? Possible. Read the question carefully. Okay. It says it's also possible for something else to happen. Let's see what else to happen. It says the number of days with heavy rainfall was lower in 1990 than in 1910. It looks wrong to us, but we don't have a reason to eliminate because it is possible. And the way I want you to think is, what happens if there were 10 days when it rained almost 100 inches? Okay, let's assume 50 inches. It just rained. it just rained the hell out of the, whole year's calendar. So those, 3 or 4 days it rained. What are they asking? They are saying the total number of days it rained. So maybe it rained only for 5 days, okay, in the whole of 1990. Okay, but those 5 days it rained like 100 inches. Possible, right? What is the question asking? It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. So I cannot eliminate answer option A. Let me look at answer option B. The number of days with some, hey, by the way, before I get that, see, even if not, since you don't have a mathematical reason to disprove A, please don't eliminate. I'm going to ask this and please put it on the chat window. How many of you, and you can put the word guilty, okay? How many of you were guilty of this crime? How many of you eliminate an answer option A for the reason I'm telling you? That you thought, hey, how can it be possible without having a mathematical reason? Go ahead. Guilty. Okay. Guilty. I'm pretty sure a lot more, yeah? See, all of you are falling in this trap. That's what I want you to think. GMAT knows this, correct? But what happens? Look at the people who chose B and C. The people who chose B and C, the number of days with some rainfall, okay, what is some rainfall? Some rainfall is greater than 0, but no more than 2 inches. So greater than 0, but no more than 2 inches, which means we are looking at moderate and light rainfall. Now what it says is, was the same in 1990? No, it is clearly telling us that there were fewer days with light rainfall, correct? And fewer days with moderate rainfall. We have this information. So you cannot go against the information that is provided to you in the answer part, correct? So answer option B goes up. What does C do? Number of days with some rainfall, but no more than 2 inches. Same thing. Was higher in 1990. It is saying it was lower. This is even more wrong. C also goes off. D says the total number of inches of rain that fell on days with moderate rainfall in 1990 was more than twice what it had been in 1910. Let me understand this. Total number of inches that fell on days with moderate rainfall. So moderate rainfall is this one. I'm circling it, okay? This is moderate rainfall. She's saying the total number of inches was more than twice. How can it be more than twice? Because look at it, moderate rainfall means you're looking at something greater than 1, okay? And twice of that will become heavy, right? It cannot remain moderate any longer. So this answer option D itself is a paradoxical statement. It's not possible. Okay. So that's where understanding English comes into play. D gets out. E says average amount of rainfall per month. Listen, average amount of rainfall per month was lower in 1990. It says total rainfall was 20% higher. If total rainfall is 20% higher for the year, then every month will also have to be higher, no, per month. How can per month be more? Correct? So for that reason, answer option E goes off. What does that leave you with? A, the most unlikely answer choice. Because the question is saying, was this possible? Yes, the answer is it's possible. Correct? Probable? Maybe not. We are not talking probability. This is not maths. Don't confuse it with quant. This is verbal. Possible is binary. It is either possible or not possible. Impossible. All right. How many of you thought this was a real tough one? Yeah. But now that you know the answer, do you also appreciate the beauty? Anand, if that were to be the case, none of the 5 answer choices would have been right. It's not a must be true. It's a maybe true question. Okay, Pratik, fair enough. You found it was moderate, but trust me, this is one big, what I want you to remember is go back to the rule I said. In CR, ensure you have a good reason. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So Gulshan, if I were to say, this year there were 1,000, inches of rain, okay? Or let's say there were 120 inches of rain, okay? And last year there were 100 inches of rain total. Now the per month average per month last year, which is nothing but the total divided by 12, that also has to be higher than the other value, right? You get it? So 120 divided by 12 will always be greater than 100 divided by 12, correct? The grammatically it is perfect. There is no problem, okay? No problem with it. So all of you are worrying about the grammar. This is fine, okay? Now I want you to kind of also look at it. We have about 15 minutes left. We also have a little bit of RC to go. So before I get there, I just wanted to ask you a question. Just wanted to check, is this webinar kind of, is it, you're finding it useful? Is it helping you, making you think? Because that's really my intention. My intention is not to bulldoze you with 50 questions and, kind of, just because that's not really the objective. The objective is for us to understand the reasoning. Once you know the reasoning, you can then go out and, practice more such questions. All right. Thank you. Overwhelming. Have found it great. Can't wait to tell your friends. Yes. So my, one of my intentions, having taught the GMAT for so long, is I also want to come on forums like this and participate with people, answer your questions, answer your queries, and really, help you take a peek into my mind. Correct. And this is a mind that I've trained for many years to actually tackle GMAT questions. Right. This is not a brain that is built for teaching English. Right. I'm terrible. I don't like grammar. Correct. I like structure. So if you're good at quant, you will be good at verbal. Right. Because being, good at verbal requires you to think in a particular structured way. Right. Now, what happens in CR is that I've seen a lot of students who just use this, bizarre thing, and they say, well, anything that they say, they'll say, it's out of scope. Why is it out of scope? Because I did not see this word mentioned in the stimulus. And the moment they say that, it's gone, right? They're like, not mentioned in the stimulus, out. Okay. So let me ask you a question, right? When all of these, the recording will be available to you. Don't worry. Okay. This entire recording is available to you. What I have in the slide is, you can make a note of it. Okay. So just 4 points I'm mentioning, right? So the first thing that I want you to think of is, when you look at a question, is that the reasoning for you to eliminate? Okay, because many a times what will happen is, you have to understand what GMAT is asking you is there an impact of this thing on the particular action? For example, let's say that I say that I came late, okay, and one of the things is, am I telling the truth, or what is, I'm late because of traffic? That's my reasoning. And you are expected to look at the cause and effect. So the cause is traffic and the effect is I'm late. Okay, now which of the following would strengthen Arun's argument? What is Arun's argument? That he is late because of traffic jam. Okay, and let us say one of the answer options is, it has been raining non-stop and the streets are waterlogged. Okay, GMAT is expecting you to understand that anybody who lives in this planet Earth will understand that something, when things are waterlogged, which means it's hard for you to move, which means there is a you will probably have a traffic jam. Correct? Or here is another thing, and especially if you're in India, you probably are aware of it, right? There was a political rally, okay, or there was a big procession, a religious procession that went through the roads of the city today. Would that not logically help my argument? In real life, if that were to be true, or if I were to say Ola Uber has a strike, there was a strike, Ola Uber ka. Now, you will logically understand, yeah, if there is a strike, then yeah, traffic will get impacted, right, in some way. So the point is, that's what GMAT is expecting you to do. But what is happening, people, the moment they say, hey, they are asking whether Arun is late, what is it, to do with Ola or Uber? No, it has to do with Ola, Uber, because it's kind of impacting your argument, right? And people tend to not understand this, correct? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a simple, this thing. I'm going to give you a question. Make sure you have a good reason to eliminate the answer options, okay? I want you to think. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. Think why you are eliminating something. All right, so I'm going to put the poll now. This is an OG question. In case you have seen it, it's actually there as part of the course as well. So if you're a Crackable student, you've probably seen this question. And in case you've seen it and you still don't remember the answer, then I think you have not really understood what this question is about. So please go ahead, mark the answer quickly. All right, so let me just go ahead and get the poll ended. So just go ahead and mark it. Okay, so I'm just going to end the poll now. All right, so kind of again all over the place. So we got a set of answers, but I can clearly see some of you might have seen this answer, because I'll tell you why this is such an interesting question. Correct. So let me give you let me give you an analogy, and let me give you a thing. Let us say I go to TripAdvisor, okay, and I go to TripAdvisor and I say that all the heritage buildings that have been converted into hotels, okay, were all, you know, they are so grand, okay. They are also grand. They are, you know, so royal. It looks very elegant, and they have very high TripAdvisor rating, okay. So can I say that all the hotels back then were all of the same quality? Think about it. All the hotels back then, let's think of a hotel in India, correct? The oldest hotel in India, as far as I know, by the way, is the Taj, the iconic Taj Mumbai, right? That's a 100-year-old hotel, right? 100 plus years. So is it true that 100 years ago, all the hotels were like that? Here's where logical fallacy comes into play. It is called the survivorship bias. This is not true. What happened is back then, all the hotels which had crappy quality probably were demolished. You know this. This is where common logic comes into play. Correct? The same idea of how I'm telling you have to link Ola and Uber to you know, someone getting late. Correct? So you need to make a connection. Now, the whole idea is, you know, if you look at it that way, you'll realize that it's called a survivorship bias, which means that only things that survive, okay, are usually different for a reason. That is why they survived, okay? And they also, you know, and this is also known as the success bias, correct? Which is success bias says that we look at success because it is very easy for us to see success, but we don't know failure. You can tell me, right, what are the successful companies that are today in the mobile wallet business, right? You will say PayZapp, and you will say Paytm, and you know, Google Pay and whatever else, correct? But there are, you know, 1,000 startups that have tried attempting it. You probably don't know their name. Again, success bias, correct? What you're seeing is only what is left. One more example. Do you know in Bollywood, if you follow Bollywood, there is this, you know, superstar who once, you know, came from Delhi to Mumbai on a train. So now my question is, if I were to say, okay, you know, do you know the people who came from Delhi to Mumbai on train and made it big in Bollywood? So anybody who follows Bollywood can answer this question on the chat window. Who's the guy who came from Delhi to Bombay? Hey, I just assuming that, yeah, so thanks, right? Shah Rukh Khan came. So the only example that you know is an example of a success. You get it? Now let us come back to this question. What he's saying in answer option D is, the better the quality, the less likely it is to fall into disuse and be demolished. Correct? So my intention of solving this question wasn't to you know, solve it from a perspective of the GMAT, but to show you that why. How many of you eliminated answer option D without even thinking about it? Because you just found that what it said did not seem to impact the argument. That's what you thought, correct? You thought it's out of scope. How many of you are guilty of that? Yeah. Right? I like the fact that when I put it as guilty, like guilty as charged, right? But that's the beauty of solving questions, correct? If you solve questions, you learn from it. So now, let me look at it. Even if I did not get to D, even if I did not understand why D is right, let us say I did not eliminate D. I said, look, I don't know why D is right, but let me not eliminate D. Let me look at the other answer options. The quality of original carpentry in hotels is original other structures. What are they talking about? They're talking about only hotels over here, correct? There is only hotels. There is no mention of other carpentry. So we are restricted. That is a good way for you to eliminate A, out of scope. B says hotels built can generally accommodate more guests. You know, this is one of those vague answer choices that make you want to assume things, right? So let me understand. So they can accommodate more, so means more work. Is that what you are trying to say? Or, you know, are there fewer carpenters, more carpenters? And how does room accommodation, like I need to now look at accommodation rates, correct? So it could be a large one, but occupation rate would have been low. So the whole thing is there are a lot of things I don't know. It's a vague answer option at best. B for Bravo goes off. C for Charlie. Here is another trap on the GMAT. For every strengthen, there will be a weaken. For every weaken, there will be a strengthen. And that's what GMAT really is going to do. So if you look at it over here, it says the materials available to carpenters. By the way, just quickly saying, as I said, my intention is not to solve this question, but just to kind of give you the focus on what to take away. But if I were to solve it, here is the opinion. The word clearly. Clearly to whom? Clearly to the author, which means it's his opinion. When it's my opinion, I'll say clearly this should happen, correct? But it's not a data. He says carpenters working before 1930, correct? Before 1930, he says these carpenters were, you know, kind of better than, you know, in quality, what all? Quality, skill, care, and effort. So I'll just write it. Not quality, it's on skill, care, and effort. Okay. So on these parameters, he says, therefore, they must have been better. Okay. Why? Because what he saw was the ones before 1930 were built better. By the way, on the GMAT, remember, clues also words like 1930. For example, if the word had been 2010, you know, the question completely changes, right? So you need to also understand the context. There is a reason why it is called 1930, not 2010. Okay. So it says, these are answer option C says the material available to carpenters working before 30 were not significantly different. See, if it had been only skills, care, and effort, okay, I'd have understood I'm looking for. He's saying material, which could have been a reason why people before 1930s could have done a better job. He says they were also not significantly different. If you had said, oh, those days they used to get this, you know, Burma teak wood, original wood, you know, you hear old people talking about it. No, hamare time pe we had this carpenters who would build, you know, houses made of this quality wood and all that. So maybe back then they just had better quality. But that reason you robbed by saying that, no, that is not a reason. Look at what we need to do. We need to weaken the argument. We need to prove why it is not true, why people back then were no different than people now, carpenters, right? And that's why answer option D, you know, I would not eliminate, I would go to E. E says average length of apprenticeship for carpenters has declined. How does a carpenter learn? He goes to college, he goes to, you know, engineering to become a carpenter? Probably not, right? In fact, I would imagine that, you know, carpenters is more of a skill, right? It's something that you learn from someone. How do you learn from someone? You learn that through apprenticeship. So if you don't know that to be a carpenter, you need to be an apprentice carpenter, then you probably don't deserve to go to Harvard Business School, right? See, this is where logic comes into play. GMAT is expecting you to understand that commonsensical logic, right? And if the average length of such training goes down, okay, the quality obviously will be impacted, which means it is strengthening the argument, not weakening the argument, correct? For that reason, answer option E goes off, right? If the opposite had been given, you actually had, you know, a potentially good answer, correct? Or at least a potential answer that could have contested. I have eliminated all the other answer options. I'm left with only D for delta, the correct answer, right? What does it say? It says better the quality, less likely it is to be demolished. So let me give you another analogy, right? Let us say that there was a major fire in the National Movie Archives, correct? And all the movies that were shot let's say before the year 2000, were destroyed in this fire, except for the movies that were sent for the national award, that were chosen for the national award, because these movies are kept in a separate wing of the building, so they weren't, they weren't burned down. Now, what are the two things that I have to compare? The ones that survived the fire before 2000 and the ones that did not, were after the fire. What you'll quickly realize is that there is a disparity in this comparison. What is the disparity? The problem is you picked the best movies before 2000. What happened to all the terrible movies of the 1980s, right? If you have seen Bollywood, right, 80s had, one of the worst movies, right? Terrible, terrible movies. And, all of them got burned down in a fire. Only the best ones survived, right? So you will say, Arun, it's an incorrect comparison, because now you're comparing it with all the movies today, including the good ones and the bad ones. But the bad ones back then got eliminated. Same Shah Rukh Khan comparison, right? So you are looking at survivorship bias, correct? For that reason, answer option D is right. See, the beauty of GMAT is this. Once you understand, okay, it's very easy for you to then say, hey, I have known this now. Till now, I did not know this. Now that I know this, next time I see a question, I should be able to apply it on to that question. All right? Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some Q&A. So go ahead and put it on the Q&A window. I've seen that you've been very good today. Not put too many questions, but if you have any questions, please put it on Q&A. But right now, I'm going to take Prabhal's question from the chat box. Okay. Arun, argument used by writer in question is about skills, etc. In order to weaken the same, I will use the same data, which is in option C. Option D is talking altogether different. And you know what, Prabhal? Whatever I spoke, I want you to go back and rewind and listen to my thing, because I wouldn't have more words. See, I cannot explain it, in different words. It's for you to understand. The other thing is sometimes we refuse to accept the right answer choice, correct? So you need to take a deep breath and say, look, D is the right answer choice, correct? So what is it that I'm thinking? What you're saying is exactly the opposite of what I'm explaining, which is talking altogether different. No, it is not. It's connected. Okay. And option C is a weekend question. Please go back, understand this question. I think it's a great question. But any other questions about the GMAT? Nilesh had this question, which is how to leverage and use the error log. How detailed need to be. See, Nilesh, use data. See what happens. We live in a world where we love objective data, correct? But the problem is objective data to some extent will help you. For example, tell me of the 4 questions that we solved, right? And you can put it on the chat window. We got a lot of learnings, lot of takeaways, right? Each question presented to us so many things. How do I now capture it, right? In the form of a, objective measure, correct? So my take is use objectivity, right? Use the error log that is provided by Crackable. But I'm saying, and there is a video also which says how to use the error log. Okay, don't worry on that. But most important is for you to understand, at a subjective. Why am I making these mistakes? What could I do differently over here, right? Those are the kind of things that you need to ask yourself, right? And I'll take this last question from one more person. It says, how do I effectively use sentence construction to eliminate? So that's the whole point. How do I do sentence construction to eliminate? I just showed you today, correct? So go back to the course, read that particular video, right? Do that video, go back to the question, solve the application questions. You will get it. In fact, we are going to be solving more questions and putting it up online as this, over the next 1 month, correct? So we're going to be upgrading the course in the next week or so. So look out for that. Okay. So you need to kind of now look at it from a perspective of how do I gain from this question, rather than just looking at the grammar part. What is the logic? That's what we need to first look for. All right. So that's all, guys. Thanks a lot. I hope this